Welcome to Podkey Left and Right, where today the real story is who gets to shape reality. A lot of these stories sound unrelated at first, but they keep landing on the same pressure point. Information isn't just being reported anymore, it's being packaged, timed, targeted, and monetized. Start with the claim that China obtained roughly 220 million US voter records. The important distinction is that the reporting points to scraping public registration data, not hacking voting machines or changing vote totals. That matters because the political rhetoric can make this sound like ballot tampering, when the stronger documented claim is something narrower and still serious, building a massive targeting database. Names, addresses, party affiliation, phone numbers, that kind of file is useful for micro-targeted persuasion, suppression messaging, and social division campaigns. So the real risk isn't a cyber thriller scenario where machines are flipped in secret. It's a slower influence play where publicly accessible data becomes fuel for propaganda tailored to specific communities. That also complicates the policy response. If the underlying data is public, then calling it a breach can be accurate in a practical sense, while still obscuring that the vulnerability may be our own data architecture, not just hostile foreign hacking prowess. That same theme shows up in the FARA and influencer stories. The big reported numbers, tens of millions for digital outreach contracts, influencer payments reportedly reaching thousands per post, tell you this is no longer fringe political messaging. It's professionalized persuasion with deliverables, impressions, and segmented audiences. The strongest argument for reform here is pretty simple. If paid sneaker ads need disclosure, paid political advocacy on behalf of foreign interests probably shouldn't hide behind a looser standard. What's missing in a lot of the debate is symmetry. People tend to care about covert influence when the foreign actor is one they already distrust. But the pattern described across China, Israel, and Saudi-linked efforts is broader than any one country. Different tools, different goals, same structural weakness. Audiences often can't tell whether a persuasive voice is authentic, incentivized, or effectively subcontracted. Trump's response tied all this to a much larger claim that officials were hiding Chinese interference, then paired it with the Save America proposal on voter ID, proof of citizenship, and criminal penalties for election workers. Here the analytical question is whether the evidence presented actually supports that package. The non-citizen registration cases are real enough to matter. A DHS review cited hundreds of thousands of registrations as a concern, and New Jersey's motor vehicle glitch improperly registered about 6,600 non-citizens, though fewer than 400 cast ballots before correction. That supports an argument for cleaner rolls, better verification, and fewer administrative errors. It does not, based on the material here, establish that these errors changed statewide outcomes or justify every punitive measure bundled into federal election legislation. On the media blackout fight, networks refusing a primetime address can be defended as editorial judgment. It can also predictably reinforce claims of partisan gatekeeping. Those two things can be true at once. The harder question isn't whether a network has discretion. It does. The harder question is whether selective discretion increases distrust in exactly the environment where institutions say trust is already fragile. The teleprompter betting case and the Trump Media Early Access Statement Service look niche, but together they expose a much bigger issue. Prediction markets and financial markets both become ethically unstable when someone with operational access can trade on timing before the public sees the information. If a teleprompter operator allegedly made money betting on words in presidential speeches, that's not a fun internet loophole. It's a classic insider information problem in a new wrapper. And selling real-time presidential statements to Wall Street clients pushes the same boundary from another direction. A few seconds of informational advantage can matter if markets are automated and headlines move assets instantly. The second-order effect is that government communication starts looking less like public information and more like a tiered product, where speed itself becomes something monetized. The AI material is really two debates wearing the same label. One is governance. Who controls systems that may become economically and strategically central, whether that's democratic board representation, national security fears about China, or Brian Eno's argument that AI profits should flow back to the data commons. The other is operational reality. Companies aren't just adopting AI as a flashy extra, they're embedding agents into core workflows and enterprise data. That business case is concrete. Natural language access to internal systems can genuinely reduce friction. But the hype needs pressure testing. Integration can create dependency on a handful of platforms, lock in proprietary standards, and shift decision-making toward models whose errors are hard to audit. Then there's energy. If AI demand drives electricity consumption hard enough, the cost of intelligence at scale includes grid strain, generation build-out, and political fights over what kind of energy gets approved fast enough. So the frontier isn't just smarter software, it's whether societies can govern concentration, infrastructure, and ownership before those choices calcify. The JonBenet re-examination belongs here, because it's another case about information shaping public belief long before certainty existed. The forensic anchors are familiar and still deeply contested. The 3-page ransom note on household paper, the $118,000 demand close to John Ramsey's bonus, pineapple evidence, the broken paintbrush garrote, the skull fracture, and unknown male DNA on the underwear and under the fingernails. None of those facts cleanly resolves the case by itself. Each gets interpreted inside a prior theory. Family perpetrator arguments lean on the note, the household materials, and statistical patterns in child homicides. Intruder theories lean on the unknown DNA, basement access questions, and transfer evidence. The strongest undisputed point may actually be about investigative failure, unsecured scenes, delayed basement access, and contaminated evidence make later certainty look weaker than the culture of true crime often admits. And the media ecosystem made that worse. Public certainty hardened around narrative cues, especially the family image and pageant imagery, in a way that outran what the evidence could responsibly support. A similar caution applies to the Charlie Kirk shooting controversies, Mormon network claims around Turning Point, Epstein-adjacent revelations, and the Tate brothers' fallout. These are the kinds of stories where a mix of real anomalies, genuine unanswered questions, factional incentives, and internet amplification can create a false sense that everything connects. Some pieces are concrete, charges filed, documented communications, staffing overlaps, disputed evidence handling. Other pieces are inference piled on top of inference. The discipline listeners need is boring but essential, separate confirmed records from narrative glue. That standard matters inside party politics too. Heavy outside spending in Democratic primaries, especially around Israel policy and AIPAC-backed efforts, clearly affects candidate incentives and issue salience. What's less clear is whether that spending ultimately imposes message discipline or produces backlash from voters who feel local politics is being nationalized by donor warfare. A lot of today's noise starts making more sense once you ask who benefits from the framing, the timing, and the opacity. That's enough for now, from Podkey Left and Right. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.